Hello, everybody, to the week 2 podcast. Everybody hates the commissioner. That's me, in case you're wondering. I am the commissioner. Tonight, I have a guest that is close to the heart, a family member of mine, and it should be a really good time. He's got a really deep background of football, so it should be interesting and it should be a lot of fun. We'll share some stories of the past, just things in general, and then football, obviously. So I want to welcome everybody. Dan Parker. How you doing, Dan?
Doing good. Thanks for having me on. Super excited after I watched you and Bo absolutely smash it last week on week 1. So I'm glad to be on here. And shout out for the shirt. I love the ULP shirt. You got Wisconsin New Glarus in the background. You got Clay and you got the ULP. So you were repping Wisconsin proudly today.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I said that we were family members. So we are first cousins, our mothers are sisters, and we have a whole spew of family from that side, and it's awesome. I think we always have a great time getting together. And we were actually talking about, we have to kind of talk in more into detail about it, but we're talking about going down to Nashville to visit a friend of ours in Wayne.
Wayno, also cousin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have to ask where you're from.
I am from the large metropolis of Berlin, Wisconsin.
Yep. Yeah, that is where all of our mothers grew up. Listen, I have a really fun time going there. Every time I go, I remember going down to a little tavern downtown that I found out they had pints of summer shandy for $1.50, and I'm like, this is the best place ever. So, what do you do for work, Dan?
I get paid to go to the gym, Nick. It's pretty great. Yeah, I get to go to the gym and talk to people and have fun every day. It's crazy that they write me a check to do that.
Yeah, that's the goal. They say is you never work a day in your life if you're having fun and you enjoy it. So that is awesome for sure. And we all know that, you got those fucking pipes, baby. We know you go.
Yeah, the dream job was to be the GM of the Green Bay Packers, so I had to settle for the general manager of our fantasy football team.
Yep. So Bo I think he started a really great thing here last week when we did this, and he brought I couldn't drink at the time because it was mid-afternoon and we had a ride to Green Bay. But do you have a drink of choice tonight, Dan?
Well, Bo really I think he did a lot of things really well last week. Also, shout out Bo last week for winning his fantasy matchup and also winning the Pick'em League. So Bo had himself a week. He repped some Basil Hayden's. So I also had to bring some Basil Hayden's today. And I think, Nick, do you have some Basil Hayden's in the house?
That's right, I do. And I think it's going to be a ritual here on this podcast that somebody's going to have a bottle of Basil Hayden's because we all love it. And if someday in the near future, when this wonderful podcast blows up and they want to sponsor us, I would gladly accept. And if we could have a year supply of Basil Hayden's that we could share amongst us, that'd be even better. So someday soon, keep an eye out for this. We're going to have logos all over the place. So
if anyone has contacts, we will definitely talk about a marketing program here.
Yeah. Do you have any fun weekend plans this weekend?
Well, I actually tested positive for the Rona for the third time just on Monday. So I am stuck quarantine at home. I feel a lot better than the first 2 times I had it, but I am going to be the good civilian and stay quarantined in my home.
Yeah. Well, my parents are leaving for the weekend and we're going to go from 1 dog to 3 dogs real quickly. So we're going to hang low with them on Friday night. And then I think go down to Beaver Dam, stay at their place and and go check out their brewery and have some fun down there. So that's kind of our plan. Besides, I mean, when I say fun, I mean it's usually when the dogs are all behaving
Yeah.
and there's a cocktail in our hands, of course. So all
But
right.
I
So
mean, when you get Obi and the family together, man, you can't beat that.
yeah. So a little about your fantasy team. How are you doing? And well, first off, give us your fantasy team name and how'd you do last week? How'd you fare?
Yeah, I am Deep Treats. That goes back to my football days. My nickname was Deep because of my initials and also because I like to throw the deep ball. And Treats just has a nice ring to it. So it's my PS5 gamer tag. It's fantasy. I like to have some treats. Um, I took an L last week, but I'm actually not upset about it. I went against the top scoring person in the league with Grizzly Bears. I put up the fourth most points. I had the highest scoring running back, highest scoring tight end, and highest scoring kicker. I just ran into the juggernaut that was Justin Jefferson and the rest of that crew. But um, you and Bo talked about it a little bit last week. My plan going into the season was to try to win. I am not playing for second place this year. So even though I took an L, I really like how my team performed. Saquon looks fantastic. Even though your guy Kareem Hunt vultured a couple touchdowns from my guy Nick Chubb, he put up 150 yards, and then Christian McCaffrey snuck in the end zone. The Carolina Panthers, first off, wow, what a terrible game plan. If you watch that game, got to
Yes.
get PMC more touches, but I'm really actually happy with where my team's at. If I can figure out what two wide receivers to play each week, I think I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Did you have Michael Thomas starting last week or?
Yeah, I started Michael Thomas and Amari Cooper. I felt that those would be my two safest routes. Honestly, no one on my bench did much. So it really actually came down to the difference in quarterbacks. I lost by 21 points, and Aaron Rodgers scored me 3, and Jalen Hurts scored him 24. So that was actually the difference in our matchup was
Yeah.
just the quarterback position.
Crazy. And I'm not trying to say a ton and just get too emotional about this app, I guess. But hey, how fucking cool is this thing? I didn't know that they're gonna put out a weekly report after, and then you get to look through and you have all the players of the week at each position, which, by the way, like you said, I think like you were 1, 2, 3, and then your opponent had 2 of them, and then Cody had Patrick Mahomes, who had a hell of a game. But you guys, I mean, it was if you were playing, I think everybody else besides one guy, you would have pulled out the victory for sure. It's just, hey, that's fantasy football. It sucks that way. But yeah, I mean, the most efficient manager award, least efficient manager, highest points, biggest blowout, overachiever and underachiever. I mean, this is so awesome. And then on the bottom of it, they have this team performance of your maximum points that you could have had, and then it gives you percentage. So I mean, you took 4th there, so great job there. You were only 2%, not just under 3% behind first place. So, but at the same time, I think it's really cool that between first and 12th place, it was only separated by about 11%. So I think everybody did a pretty solid job this weekend. But yeah, it was sweet. Also, I was really excited to wake up today because it was waiver wire Wednesday, and I was super excited to see how that all played out for the first week, because there's gonna be a mad rush for those players after the week 1. There's injuries, and then just kind of seeing how things play out. But yeah, did you get a guy? Did you sneak somebody in, or did you make any bids on anyone?
I put in one request, and I got to admit, I forgot to even check it today.
I think you put a bid in for, if I'm not mistaken, Taysom Hill.
I did, yes. I am not trying to get rid of my money right away.
Yep.
My strategy coming into early season is not to overreact.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
too many people freak out about people who didn't get catches and didn't get touches in week 1. Just like the Packers losing, I'm not worried yet. Am I thrilled about it? No, but I'm not going to overreact. You have to trust the guys that are on your squad. Now, with that being said, there's definitely some waiver wire targets out there that definitely should be picked up.
Yep.
I'm just not really looking to shake up my team too much right now. I think I have a really good blend of guys who are going to help me today and guys that I know aren't going to do much for me, but this year, but I can kind of stash for the next year. But for those guys who had injuries or maybe some depth chart questions, yeah, absolutely get those guys while you can.
Yeah. I think it's really funny coming from the horse's mouth not to overreact the day right after week one, says the guy that put Aaron Rodgers on the block after the first week. I had a good laugh about that.
Honestly, that is more just a dangle. And me, I'm not out here like Stu trying to make 5 trades a day. Shout out Stu.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I am always willing to listen. You want to throw an offer out there for me? I'll listen. You want to talk some future draft capital? I'm all ears. That was the one position I was not thrilled on draft day. I'm really happy I got Rodgers because he's a guy you want to root for, right? You don't want to be playing against Rodgers and then have to root for him to have a bad game. So I try to kind of mix that a little bit. I've got Tua on the bench. I'm not a huge Tua guy, but man, he could have a solid year. And then Kenny Pickett on my bench. He's my future. I definitely believe in Kenny Pickett. So I kind of staggered my ages and my experience levels for the QB.
Yep.
My strategy also is to kind of really spend high. So I really like auction drafts. I will spend all my money on my top 4 or 5 guys because I don't want a lot of guys that are similar level. And then you've got to guess who to start every week because you're always going to guess wrong. Yep. So my team, it's a little risky that way because I know my 10 starters every week. And if one of them gets hurt, I'm probably in trouble. But for right now, Rodgers is my set it and forget it guy. But, if somebody loses Dak Prescott, something like that, they want to take a little dangle, give me a call.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I thought it was pretty interesting. One move that I thought, or a couple by our dear friend, Jonathan, spent I wouldn't say a ton, but a decent amount on, it would be, let me look at him, Kyle Phillips, the Titans wide receiver. A little surprised by that, even though he did have, I believe, the second or third most targets last weekend. Even I know they're a little shorthanded at receiver with AJ Brown gone, but surprised by that. And then even more surprised when he was so excited about drafting David Bell in the rookie draft. Gave him 1 week, cut, done, said, fuck it, I'm over it. Like, so that surprised me a little bit, but yeah, I was really excited. I honestly forgot about it last night. It was a busy night, a busy day, busy night. And then when I woke up and I saw that I had 7 or 8 notifications on the Sleeper app, I was like, oh yes, let's go. I'm so excited to see what people did. So yeah, it was fun this morning when I woke up. That immediately put a smile on my face. Well, after the cup of coffee, of course, need that coffee.
I really like Taysom Hill. I think I didn't want to bid too much because I do think that's a little reactionary. Would I love to add him? Yes, because I have Gronk sitting on my bench, and it sounds like he's probably not coming out of retirement. Thought I'd keep him for a stash, but I think at this point a roster spot might be more important.
Right.
So that's where I figured, if I can snag Taysom Hill for a couple bucks. But with that being said, I think that's a good pickup for the real Netty. Taysom Hill is such a weapon. If they keep him involved, and I really do think, even though the Saints struggled in the first half, I think that offense is they've got some players. But my favorite pickup actually by John was Devin Duvernay. I think he actually could be pretty consistent. I know Rashad Bateman was the hot name coming out of camp, but Duvernay could be the guy. Baltimore's not going to throw it 30 times a game, but man, you get 6-7 catches and a tutty every now and then. That's a solid pickup.
Yeah, for sure. And I love to see that Jake wisened up a little bit, and he went and claimed a guy that didn't cost him any money instead of spending $70 of his.
And I tried throwing Jake a little deal out there before the week, throwing him some free agent bucks at him, and he wasn't having it.
Yeah.
But, and that's the thing with fantasy football is some of us have probably done Dynasty before, but this is a new format. I love the Sleeper app. I'm with you, especially for Dynasty, and everyone in the league is so active. To have that for year to year for this app, I think is a really cool thing. And it's exciting, right? It's not just your plug and play roster. You look at it once and you're done for the week. But those free agent bucks, it's interesting to see the strategy, because if there's a guy out there and you're like, this guy can help my roster, why not throw the money down? Put the money on the table and walk away. So it'll be interesting when we roll into week 6 and 7, and there's some guys that are struggling at 2 and 5, 3 and 4, and they think one guy can change their team around. I'm not in that bucket yet where I'm seeing that,
Right.
but not saying I wouldn't be if the right guy popped up.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, and it's kind of sad that I don't remember his name, but that year that the Rams were on that Super Bowl run, I believe that it was the year they lost to the Patriots, but their starting receiver, I think it was Todd Gurley, got hurt late, and I was doing the same thing. I was saving my money, and I was up at the top of the waiver too, but that didn't matter because I blew everybody out of the water on my bid. And they were, at the time, they were pretty run heavy because Jared Goff was newer, and they didn't trust him a ton. But so that guy won me the fantasy league because he was putting up 20, 25 points a game. And I mean, again, I'm not trying to give away secrets or ideas, but man, that's not a bad idea for sure. Just save that to the end, and or in the middle of the season when you really need a push. But yeah, so again, I love the Sleeper app. I'm really excited that that it was suggested to me, because I've been really, really impressed. So, well, I think this is a really, really good transition to meet, if you haven't met him, our favorite pal. So we're going to create a new segment that's going to happen every week. It didn't happen last week, but we are going to have a segment called Obi's Picks, and Obi is my sweet, sweet golden retriever, and we all love him so much. And I guess I will let the video explain how he picks his teams. So, well, first off, Dan, let's kind of see what he did in week 1.
Yeah, so I think this segment's going to bring a lot of fun. If you haven't met Obi, be prepared. He was so focused in this video, guys. I'm gonna set the tone for you. He was so focused on his pick. He's taking this stuff serious. So we might want to consider, when we're making our picks this week, we might want to consider what Obi has to do. So without further ado.
Well, I'm not to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I know that we didn't have it in week 1, but I did right before this first recorded video of Obi. He did pick the Bills to beat the Rams, so keep that in mind.
He did. So he actually picked better than half of us in the other league.
Yeah.
I think it was right down the middle. I think it was 10-10 picked the Rams and the Bills. And we'll get into a little bit of game recap after this. I want to hear your thoughts on week 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, let's set the tone for tomorrow, man. I'll let you talk about the game, but man, am I excited. The NFL has put together some really, really huge matchups these first few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Without further ado, let's see what Mr. Obi has to say about tomorrow's matchup. And you need to disable screen share.
Oh, I am sorry here.
That's all right. Hey, everybody, this is a great time to get up, refill that drink, kick the feet up on the couch, turn the volume up, and kick back.
I thought there we go. All right, still working my way around Zoom. I apologize, everybody. All right, go for it.
You got it. All right, guys. So I'm going to put together some graphics for y'all this year. So I'll be popping on these calls, even though I won't be the guest speaking. I'll be running the media in the back. So here's what we've got on the slate for this year, guys. we've got Thursday night games from week 1 through 17. As you can see, the paw of approval up by the Bills. Obi started out the season hot at 1-0. And I'll let Nick kind of explain how we're doing this, but here's Obi to let us know what he thinks is going to happen tomorrow.
Welcome everybody to week 2 of Obi's picks. He is officially 1-0, and he's going to pick the game by which treat he picks. We've got the Chargers versus the Chiefs. It'll be a good game on Thursday night. Are you ready, buddy? Come here. Come on. Come. It's the Chargers, everybody. Obi picks the Chargers.
And I mean, you guys, if you could not tell the focus on his face, I think he was eyeing the Chargers the whole time, Nick. It looked like he really had that treat in line.
Yeah. Welcome, everybody.
So here's what we got. We got Obi. He's got the paw of approval on the Chargers in week 2. What do you think, Nick? What's your pick for tomorrow night?
Well, if I'm going against the spread, I'm going to agree with Obi, and but for sure, well, I shouldn't talk too much, because I almost guaranteed my life that the Broncos were going to win last week's game, but we can get into that later. But I think that the Chargers are. I think they're honestly in the AFC could be the second best team behind the Bills. And I know that Justin Herbert's young, but man, that defense, they brought in Khalil Mack. They have Joey Bosa. And don't forget about Derwin James, now the highest paid safety in the league. Man, I mean, they're loaded all over, especially on the offensive side of the ball with Eckler. They've drafted Isaiah Spiller, who I think they're going to bring on a lot slowly, for obvious reasons, because Austin Eckler is more than capable. But don't forget about those wide receivers either, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Not to discredit Patrick Mahomes. I'm not a fan of watching Patrick Mahomes, but I will never, ever deny how good of a football player he is. I mean, that guy pulls things out of his ass all the time. And it's just like, it kind of reminds you of Brett Favre a little bit, right? So, I mean, but maybe even a little better. Not that I want to say that, because I love my Packers, but I think the Chargers kind of have a more well-rounded team, and especially because the Chargers have to get younger because they spent so much money and I guess so many resources on Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and maybe a couple guys up front on their defensive line. But I think the Chargers are going to take this one. I agree with Obi, and I'm not being biased here when I say that at all. I mean, I love him. I love him to death, and I always will. But I'm going to have to agree with Obi on this one. What do you think?
I'm with you. I think if you look at teams right now and look at the roster, I think the Bills clearly are the best team, both on the eyeball test, but also on paper. If you look at that roster from top to bottom, I think the Chargers are right behind them. I'm with you. I actually think right now I would put the Chargers as my number 2 team for power rankings.
Yeah.
I think the AFC is well ahead of the NFC right now. Now, obviously, we know a lot of things can change, but I think I'm going to take the Chiefs minus the 3.5 at home this week. And it's only because of what I saw in Mahomes last week. That guy was just out for blood.
Yeah.
Do I think the Chargers are the more complete team? Yes. Herbert is definitely the real deal. I'm a big fan of Eckler and those wide receivers. The defense, like you said, is nasty. Mahomes and Andy Reid they just have something. They've got that it factor. And I'm just going to ride the hot hand for right now. It's one of those things, until you see the actual changing of the guard, you just can't bet against it. It's like Tom Brady every year. He's going to regress. He's going to regress. Until I see it, I'm just not betting against the guy. So I'm very excited. The game absolutely could go either way, but I'm actually going to take the Chiefs at home in this one.
And another thing I want to note about these Thursday night games is, holy shit, they're so good compared to just 3 years ago. They're making a pretty serious investment on Thursday Night Football, especially with moving it to Amazon Prime. But this matchups, I mean, I know that you don't always get the best game on Thursday nights because it's a little rushed and well, it's quick turnover, but man, the matchups, you can't argue with that at all this year. And I hope that that continues. And I'm not a huge Troy Aikman fan, in the booth, but at the same time, it's better than what was in there. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I'm really excited for that. Um, what was your favorite game that or what game did you kind of was that you were drawn to the most this weekend? If you were, because you were under the weather, so I'm assuming you got to watch a lot of football. So what game really kind of sucked you in?
Yeah, I was actually this is gonna sound crazy to us. I was watching Jacksonville and Washington.
Hmm.
Um, I thought it was a great matchup. I think it's two teams that are, up and coming. I'm a huge Trevor fan.
Yeah, I am
I think a
too.
lot of us, I think a lot of us in the league are bought into Trevor. I mean, I don't think they're going to be contending for a Super Bowl this year, but I thought Doug Peterson was a fantastic hire. Um, I've never been a Carson Wentz hater. I definitely don't think he's a top guy, but I just think he brings a lively arm. There was a lot of big fantasy names in that game that are young names that you're kind of excited to see.
Yeah.
You kind of start to see this change into the guard with these young cats. I was disappointed the Jags couldn't pull out the win, but I was bouncing back and forth to that game. But man, that Thursday night game, the Bills and the Rams, even though it was kind of a stinker for the Rams, that was a good way to start the season. And
Yeah.
I am all aboard the Josh Allen train. That guy, I don't see a lot of teams being able to compete with them right now. But hey, the season is a long season,
Oh yeah.
and one bad game can spoil it. But yeah, I was really bought into that Jags game. What about you? Were you more of an early night guy, or were you waiting for that Bucks Cowboys game?
Oh, dude, I and obviously our future listeners and people that aren't in the league aren't going to know our team situation, but I was all about that Bengals Steelers game, baby. Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase. That was my dream going into our draft. Okay. I wanted Jamar Chase in the worst way because of what he did last year, and the guy is a baller. Joe Burrow. John actually asked me in the past. He was starting to collect football cards, and actually, and you have we've talked about that. You've done a little collecting yourself, but John asked me the year of the Joe Burrow draft. It was what, 3 years ago now. He goes, "Hey man, if I could take one card, which would you pick?" And this was about 5 weeks into the season, so there was a Thursday night game, the Browns against the Bengals, and Joe Burrow, he was starting week one, and so he was out there, and I was watching this. They didn't win the game, but I was watching this guy just make these fucking throws to the sideline. I was like, oh my god, he's making big boy throws, and he's 22 years old, man. I'm like, this guy's gonna be the real deal. I'm like, was he perfect? No, but he was out there fighting for everything and making some really bold throws, and he was putting them on the money. I was so impressed. So I was like, dude, if you have a chance to get a Joe Burrow card, I think you should. And luckily, I have them both on my team. I have the Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase connection, hopefully for the next 10 plus years, right? But I was all about that. And then, as sloppy as that game was, uh, well, not to get away from that, but holy shit, the fumbles this weekend, that really surprised me. And another thing that surprised me was how many helmets came off of players, because I had red zone going most of the time, when it was commercial, the Steelers and Bengals game. But that was another thing that really surprised me. And maybe we can touch on that later. But yeah, I was really, really excited for that. I mean, that was, oh, it was so back and forth. I mean, you thought the Bengals were getting their asses kicked. Well, they looked like they're score-wise getting their asses kicked the whole time, but at the end, I mean, don't ever count out Joe Burrow. I think he's gonna have that kind of that Tom Brady trait. Just doesn't matter if they're down 28-3 at halftime, baby. Don't ever give up on the guy. So
Sorry, Atlanta Falcons fans.
yeah,
For that.
yeah.
No, I'm
So,
with you. I think if you actually watch just the game and you're not watching the score, Cincinnati is by far the better team. Handed to Pittsburgh. I actually took Pittsburgh in the pick'em just because I wanted the points. I thought they could keep it low scoring and keep it close. But, if you take away those turnovers from Joey B, which is not like him, I mean, that it's a 40-10 game.
yep,
And that's where I always tell people it's week one. Don't overreact, right?
yep,
Packers lost. Yeah, they got spanked by a pretty average, sub-average Saints team in week one last season, and look what happened. So
right.
if you're a Bengals fan, which I know you are, I'm a Bengals fan for sure. And here's another little tidbit. I know a lot of you guys know this. Think of how good Justin Jefferson is. He was the number 2 wide receiver behind Jamar Chase at college. So if anybody had doubts of him coming in the league, yeah, that guy is a monster.
Yep.
I know you and Bo were talking about your favorite teams last week, and I told you after the draft, as far as dynasty teams go, I love your team. I'm not happy with your guy Kareem Hunt vulture and touchdowns, but having a quarterback in that group of young wide receivers that you have, that is a really, really good foundation from year to year. And then try to find that diamond in the rough running back. So I'll just throw that little tidbit in there. I'm definitely built to win now. I think you're definitely built to win in the next three to really 7 years.
Yeah.
So it's cool how you guys were talking about different strategies. Again, I think everyone had really good strategies going into the league, but that was definitely my intention. Was I'm trying to win it this year, baby, and if I don't win the next 5, that's okay, right? Put that
Yep.
Super Bowl ring up.
Yep. And it'll pay for the next how many seasons, so then you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. I hear you. And I love, like I've said last week, I love my rookies, and I'm panning on. I'm really hoping on a couple panning out. I'm kind of built on that, obviously. So if it doesn't, then it's gonna be a real shitter. But speaking of rookies, man, Christian Watson, that first play on offense, man, and not it would have benefited you more than me because I wasn't starting Christian Watson. But boy, I don't think you could have put a better ball in his hands. Just just, and he was looking at it too. It's not like he was like looking ahead. It was I was like,
As a
oh
former quarterback, I can tell you how absolutely gut wrenching it is to come out of the gates firing like that and miss. I've had it gone both ways where I've missed a guy wide open, and I've had it where I've had a guy drop a ball like that wide open. And to start the game like that, it takes a real dude to just brush that off and keep playing. Obviously, the Packers struggled, but Rodgers is like Favre and the great ones. You talked about Joey B. They're onward to the next play. I definitely think you could tell Rodgers was a little miffed for the entire game, but it really is not going to affect his thing. I was more upset because that would have been such a big confidence booster to start the season and have the rookie receivers come out and grab that first touchdown and get off to a hot start. And
right.
now you've got to go another week of like, are the wide receivers going to be able to do the job? Is Green Bay going to have enough on offense? You know what I mean? Because I'm telling you, our defense is not set up to be that shutdown D like the Rams or the Bucks the last couple of years. I think our defense is going to feed off of our offense. If we're rolling on offense, we have so many playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. If they can play loose without pressure, I think we're going to be able to really roll some people. I don't think our defense is built to win games by themselves. So it was more of a miss in confidence, I think, for me, for the young group.
Yep. I definitely agree with that. But I definitely want to spend some time on the Packers, but I want to, before we get into that, I think that we should maybe talk about, since we were talking about fantasy, I think we should close out our fantasy discussion with some players of the week. So another segment that we're going to do here is previous. We're going to give the guest what their and myself their selection of the previous player of the week, and then what they think next week's player of the week will be. So, Dan, why don't you pull that up for us, and then we can start with you.
Yeah. Before I pull it up and spoil it, I mean, what a week one for fantasy, man. There, I was looking at the numbers, and the first quarter, if you were watching the noon games, there was not a lot going on in that first quarter. It was kind of a dry day. And then all of a sudden, the fantasy points just started popping. These young wide receivers going off, quarterbacks. I mean, even the running backs. I mean, it was going crazy. Obviously, you got to think Justin Jefferson, right? It's hard for me as a Packer fan to vote him as player of the week. But man, if you don't talk about that guy and give him some credit, I give just as much credit to their offensive coordinator for getting him moving around. I actually think, talking about the Packers, I would like to see some more creativity and moving some pieces around.
Yep.
But I'm not going to go with JJ this week.
Well, not to interrupt, Dan, but I really, he was obvious. He was the clear choice, right? I mean, I don't think anybody could argue with that, especially in our league with 40 points. He scored more than any quarterback because of the 2 tutties and the 9 receptions, and we have a 1-point PPR league, right? So he was a clear choice. So I think somebody like that, or in the future, if there's a quarterback that has six touchdowns and 350 yards, right, he's going to be the obvious choice. But I hope in the future when we do this, let's avoid that obvious choice, and then let's kind of create some more discussion on somebody else that intrigued you. So again, go ahead.
I think the viewers might like my reasoning for this. You could have went with Josh Allen. You could have went actually with my guy Saquon Barkley. But I lost last week. So it's kind of like in the NFL. Do you pick an MVP on a guy that went 5-12? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So my MVP is actually going to come from a winning team in his game and also in fantasy. But I also want to throw out another honorable mention. How about the Pittsburgh Steelers defense? 28 points, 5 turnovers, 7 sacks, a blocked kick to save the game, and a touchdown. So that's my honorable mention. It's not often that you can say a defense in fantasy won you a game.
Yep.
But I am going to go with kind of an obvious pick, but I'll tell you why. My guy is going to be Patrick Mahomes. But listen, 360 yards, 5 touchdowns. The guy was just prime Patrick Mahomes. But why I picked him for player of the week, he helped actually Cody edge out a 2-point victory in his fantasy matchup. So shout out to Cody. Patrick Mahomes with that performance helped Cody win by literally 2.3 points. So that is why my guy this week is Patty Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Who do you got?
Well, I'm not trying to stick to too close to home, but I can't not go with, wait for it, Jamar Chase, baby. How can you not go with the guy? I mean, not only did he have 10 receptions for 129s and a touchdown, he should have had 2 touchdowns if they would have taken a deep breath after that catch, and then maybe let the guys upstairs what they pay. I'm sure they pay him a lot of money, way more than I'm sure that we make, to say, hey coach Taylor, that was in, buddy. That's a touchdown. No, they ran up to the fucking line, and then they went 3 and out, and they got nothing out of it. They went for it on 4th down and got nothing out of it. So he should have had a second touchdown. He was as good as the Steelers defense was, as you brought up before. They were so good. But Jamar Chase, man, just tore him up, and he should have had a second touchdown. And that would have you can't discredit what Cooper Kupp did on last Thursday night because he did a wonderful job. But that touchdown that should have been would have put him over the top over Cooper Kupp in points. So I got to go with Jamar Chase on this one, man. And it was, not to mention, I was watching that whole game, and it was phenomenal. So, but hey, there's always next week to keep it going. Keep it going. So
You'll
Dan,
see what I'll do each week is I'm going to put these guys up, and we can do a little track of the season and keep this up here.
Yeah, I like that.
But that being said, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I like that because that's kind of our selection instead of what the obvious choice is, right? I mean, I'm not trying to deter anybody away from selecting the obvious choice, but we both picked a couple guys that weren't, and I like this. This is awesome. I haven't seen this one, this visual, Dan. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think if you go obvious, kind of like, let's say it's Monday and you're going into Monday and you're down 42 points and you're like, I got Jonathan Taylor. There's a chance, but it's slim. And Jonathan Taylor busts out for 203 tutties and ekes out a win. I don't know how you can't pick the guy. Again, not knocking Justin Jefferson, like you said. That guy was phenomenal. I mean, he was unguardable last year. He's only getting better. That Minnesota Vikings new coaching staff, I think, has done a great job. I forget who has him in our league, but whoever took.
Isn't it Brian? Isn't it Brian who played you?
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah. How did I forget already?
Yeah.
I'm already putting it in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. On to next week. On to next week. I've got John, and if John, sorry John, you're my guy. But if you could do a repeat performance of last week, that'd be much appreciated, my man. Yeah, for sure.
So we got this week, Nick. But who do you have for a prediction for next week's fantasy player of the week?
So this was tough for me. I wanted, in the worst way, to say Jonathan Taylor because he has a really good matchup against Jacksonville, and I really do think that he's going to tear it up, and he may be the highest scoring fantasy player this week. But I wanted to go a little off screen a little bit, and I'm going to go with a guy that I was really impressed by, who actually and I didn't realize this until after I sent this to you, was that I'm going to be playing against him. So so that sucks. But I'm going to go with Javonte Williams. He's playing Houston, and what really impressed me watching him on Monday night, and we'll get into that Broncos Seahawks game a little bit later, but what really impressed me was just because we are a PPR league, he had I guess I can't remember exactly. And again, this is what the correction segment is for. And just so you know, apparently Bo and I were perfect last week because I didn't get any corrections. But I'm pretty sure he had was it 8 or 9 catches? And when I was watching that game,
11.
All I saw was Russ just dumping screens down, and he was just letting him just bowl through the secondary. And I love that.
He had 7 carries for 43 yards for a 6 a clip, and he added 11 catches on 12 targets.
Yes. And the majority of them were screens. So, and not that I'm not discrediting the Texans at all, but they need a lot of work. I believe in what they're doing. I believe in, according to, especially from last week, in Dameon Pierce, but Javonte Williams, I think, is going to eat them up, and I think he's going to have a really good week. And I know that they split carries over there in Denver, but I think Javonte Williams is going to have a hell of a week this week. And you clearly you're going with your guy, and I don't blame you, but you're going with Saquads, baby.
I'll tell you why though. I try to stay away from my own guys. I didn't have a player of the week on my team because we didn't pull off the W. But man, Saquon it made my heart so happy to watch him
Yeah.
running. Like, I'm a big Saquon fan, the person. I'm not a huge Giants fan. I don't hate the Giants. They could win the NFC East. I'd be fine with that. But I took a big gamble on him. I actually have him in all my leagues, and I'm a believer in Saquon, not just this year, but in the future. And it made me take a deep breath of air watching him get involved in that Giants offense. You have a guy, last week he had 24 touches, 32 fantasy points, 194 total yards and a tutty. He really has nobody that's stealing carries from him, maybe if he needs a breather, but he is not in any kind of committee. He's a phenomenal pass catcher. He's got home run speed at any carry. And this week he's going up against a Carolina defense that just allowed 223 yards of total offense between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. So with that being said, I think it's going to be a slow-paced game. That's okay for running backs. Saquon's going to get 20 touches. I'm hoping it's closer to the 25. I foresee him getting another 170 total yards, and I'm gonna say not one but two touchdowns, two trips to the end zone this weekend.
Hey, I didn't get him in our dynasty league, but Cody, who we had a shutout for last week, he has a league, and I went running back heavy in that one, and I went with Saquon, Javante, and Nick Chubb, my first three picks. So I think that's going to be a pretty good strategy. I've never done that. I've never done running back heavy before, but hey, man, I'm all about Saquads. I've been about him since day one. I think he's legit. He's just had some unfortunate injuries, and you could say that about a lot of guys for sure, but he's just, I think, kind of with the different head coaches, different coordinators, different injuries, he's just kind of been dealt a bad hand of cards. And I hopefully this year with Brian Dable, who I thought did a great job against Tennessee, with beating a really, really good Tennessee team, I think this could be that huge breakout season for Saquon, and then he's gonna get that fucking money, baby.
Well,
He's gonna get
as far as running back money goes, yeah.
Yes.
So with that being said, Nick, I started to cut you off because I want to definitely talk more games last week and upcoming. But while we're on the talk of players, I think I talked about this with you yesterday. If you put yourself in a real life general manager position, right? We're talking running backs. They're not getting paid like they used to, right? All the money's going to these quarterbacks. We talked how Mahomes is taking so much salary from that team. If you look at the teams that have won the past couple of years, they really are built head to toe, but they've got that quarterback. So I want to challenge you. You're the general manager of an NFL football team. How are you building your roster, or what are you focusing your money and your talent on?
So are we talking just offense, because fantasy football is offense, or are we talking on both sides of the football?
So we'll leave fantasy out of it for right now. If you're building a winner and your job is on the line to win a Super Bowl, not this year, you could go for it this year like I am with fantasy, but you're the general manager. You're trying to build a franchise. What are the pieces that you're looking to build?
I think, well, it's really, really tough to find a franchise quarterback. And I think that's very, very obvious, right? And that's why I think the Packers finally, I don't know, bit their tongue, or what the right term is, why they finally divvied up to Rodgers, because you can't replace a Hall of Fame quarterback, especially after coming off of 2 MVPs. Okay. It's really hard to
Unless
find.
you draft another Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah, well, yes, I understand, and they did do that, and then kudos to them. But the chances of them doing that 3 times in a row, not buying it. But so it's tough. It's really tough finding a franchise quarterback that you can put out on the field for the next 15 to 20 years. Personally, I want a legitimate number one, best in the league pass rusher, because that guy can create havoc, man. It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is, it doesn't matter how good your left tackle is. He's going to create a lot of issues. And I think you can, a prime example before that really unfortunate injury was TJ Watt, man. Wisconsin guy, let's go. But man, that sucks. He was, that's really unfortunate because he was tearing the Bengals offense apart almost single-handedly. I'm not discrediting Minka Fitzpatrick in any way, but TJ Watt was just an animal. But if you can find a guy like that or Myles Garrett, I would do that first. But on the offensive side of the football, as hard it is to find a quarterback, and if we want to kind of go around just being lucky enough to find a franchise quarterback, I'd love to have a really good balance. I like power backs. Those shifty guys are fun as hell to watch. Barry Sanders, for example. But I love watching those power backs, and I love watching those offensive linemen just run forward, man, just knock people down, and then put some speed on the outside, on the outside wide receivers. I think I would like to do about a 50. I mean, it depends on game situation, but 50%, 50-50 on the run and pass, and then have a tall, athletic tight end that can really screw you in play action because you're establishing the run with that bruiser. So that's kind of what I would do if I had to, at least early. I mean, that's a really, really good question, a really tough question, but I think I would go the best pass rusher that I can, because he's just as important as your quarterback. But then after that, just have a balanced offense with some speedy guys on the outside. And I know you love speedy guys on the outside because you're a quarterback, baby. I mean, yeah, I know that you don't want to run the. I know you don't want to run the football unless it's the football's in your hands. So
give me 5 of them.
Come on, let's hear what you have to say.
No, I love that you said that, and I'll tell you my perspective. And for you viewers out there, I am not a high-level quarterback. I played for a long time, but not at that level. But I can tell you, if I was a GM, I'm with you, Nick. I think if you're going to go out in free agency and you have money to spend on one guy that you think is going to change your team, I am going for that pass rusher. I am 100% with you. I think teams are starting to see how the league is becoming more pass heavy, and rightfully so, because I'm all about spacing, right? I'm counterintuitive of traditional football that you run to set up the pass. I'm a pass to set up the run now. If you can lighten up that box and have 5 in the box and I can hand it off to Saquon Barkley, you are in trouble. But I think teams are trying to counterbalance that, and they're overpaying the defensive backs. Not saying defensive backs aren't important, but look at what the Bills just did to Jalen Ramsey. Look at what the Vikings just did to Jair Alexander. Those are, in my opinion, 2 of the top 5 corners in the league, and it didn't matter because these offensive coordinators are getting so creative. You can't have your number 1 corner just go around and follow, prime Larry Fitzgerald or prime Julio Jones anymore. That's not how the league works. So I'm with you. But I'm going to give you another little nugget from another guy in the NFC North here. MCDC, as Pat McAfee likes to call him, Motor City Dan Campbell. He is building the Lions from the inside out. He is building some big, nasty, mean men on both lines. And let me tell you, as a quarterback, if you give me 5 really good offensive linemen, I would take those 5 really good offensive linemen over 5 fast wide receivers, especially in the NFL. You give these professional quarterbacks time to throw the ball, it doesn't matter as much who their targets are, right?
Right.
Would I love to see some bigger name wide receivers with Aaron Rodgers? Of course. But these, and to your point about having that defensive end, if you can disrupt timing on a passing offense, I don't care how good you are, unless you're Peyton Manning and Tom Brady getting the ball out immediately. That offensive and defensive line is where I'm going. When the Rams won the Super Bowl last year, that D line was just nasty.
Yeah.
When the Bucks won 2 years ago, their offensive and defensive lines were
Six.
the best in football. So I'm
Yep.
I'm with you 100%. It might not be flashy for fantasy, but that's what I'm doing. I'm building that core of big men up front, and the last thing I'm worried about is a running back.
Well, you can you can make that same argument. I mean, it's a legitimate argument for the Bengals last year. If they had invested a little bit more resources in that offensive line, that's a whole different ball game. They were winning at halftime. And then, I mean, not to discredit Aaron Donald. I mean, he's arguably the best interior defensive lineman of all time. But if you had some better help in the interior on your offensive line, that's different. It changes a lot of things instead of just throwing a bunch of, like, I can't really say Joe Blows out there because here I am in central Wisconsin not playing football, but you know what I mean,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I agree. I mean, you want to build, and I love what Dan Campbell's doing in Detroit, and I love that, but it also makes me nervous because I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. So, well, the Detroit Lions are with, and I thought Bo had a really fair comment last week that where he said that I don't know if Dan Campbell's going to be the guy long term, but he's building a really, really serious and real culture there where that they can build on. They can definitely build on that. And so, yeah, I believe in not that I want to, but if I had to root for a shitty team, it even though they're in our division, it may be the Detroit Lions. So for
Yeah,
sure.
if to that point, if you look at the top teams in the last 10, 15 years, they've got the top coaches, whether you like them or not. I can't stand Bill Belichick, but that guy built a very specific culture and it worked.
Yep.
They won games because he was very direct in what he wanted to do, and he brought in the people that fit that scheme. Mike Tomlin with the Steelers, Harbaugh with the Ravens. I'm not a huge fan of any of those teams, but those coaches get the best out of their players because they know who they are, right?
Yeah.
These teams like the Browns that are constantly trying to find a new quarterback, and these other franchises that just can't get it together, they don't have that culture built up like those top franchises. Honestly, Green Bay's got a great culture, right? I mean, we've had a couple different head coaches and in some moving parts, but the team has that culture of who they are, right? They are balanced. I do think LaFleur did a nice job. I know you're an AJ Dillon fan here too. You like those beefy running backs. As fans, hometown fans, we might not always agree that it might not be the flashiest draft pick or whatever, but I believe in what LaFleur and unfortunately Goody are doing to put together a roster here.
Yeah. So, well, then why don't we dive into a little Packers talk?
Do we have to?
Uh,
Yeah, no, you're good. What were your key takeaways? What did you like that you saw, and what were some question marks?
So I hate to admit this, but in our Pick'em League, I took the Vikings because I thought that the Packers had a legitimate shot of winning that football game, but I didn't think it was going to be by much. And I don't know if you're paying attention to the Vegas lines, but the Packers started off at 2.5-point favorites, and then before kickoff, they were 1.5-point underdogs. So clearly, that was a good bet, right? I don't think that Joe Barry was one bit prepared for the motions, and I think that Lafleur made that very clear in his post game presser. They're paying $12 million to a skill player who had 5 carries that averaged almost 10 yards a carry. Why the fuck do you not give him the ball more? And I'm not knocking AJ Dillon here in any way. He's a fantastic football player, but Aaron Jones should be on the field in my opinion, quite a bit more than AJ Dillon. He is a playmaker. He's strong. He's fast. He can catch the football. He can do everything. They're paying him for a reason. And they just, I think we're going to try to start transitioning over to the AJ Dillon world because your salary cap hit takes a major dip after this year. I think that's wrong. That's your plan, use and abuse, man. Use the guy. You have to, even if that's not your plan, just use him because he's a playmaker. And I understand that you don't want to limit Aaron Rodgers because he's arguably the most talented passer of all time. But those running backs are so talented, you can't just ignore them. So I think what they say that the running backs touch the ball 22 plays out of the 60 that they ran, and that needs to be more. It, especially with these young receivers, it definitely needs to be more. They need to build off the run, and Aaron Rodgers learned from the best in play action, man, fooling everybody. Out of Brett Favre, he's gonna slice you apart if you start buying on the run, man. So I think at the start of the season, until these receivers become more dependable and you don't and trustworthy, where you don't have to worry about them dropping a wide open first play bomb on the right side. I think you got to depend on these running backs, and I think Rodgers would be okay with that because he's at the point in his career where I think he wants a Super Bowl, and if he doesn't want it, he wants a Super Bowl appearance more than anything, right? I mean, how many NFC championships has he been to? A lot. And he's only been to one Super Bowl and he's won, and it was awesome. We had a blast when that happened, but he needs to get back to another one for the so-called legacy, right? And I think you got to depend on these backs, and then when you can kind of ground and pound and utilize them more, I think the defense is going to be better. And I'm not trying to take over conversation here, but I'm just gonna have a quick bit on that defense, man. I know and I understand that Justin Jefferson is a fantastic receiver, and I know that Joe Barry's defense is a zone defense primarily. But what the fuck were they doing with Justin Jefferson? He was wide open every single time that they threw the football to him. I mean, he was running these crossing routes that it was supposed, from what I saw, designed underneath the safeties, but over the backers. And nobody was there. I don't know if the safeties were getting confused, and you probably have better insight on that because you played way more football than I have. But man, I feel like it wouldn't have mattered who was back there. You was so wide open. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. Talking about Jefferson, the funny thing is crossing patterns actually first got their start to beat man coverage, because going in a straight line back and forth is easy once you start crossing directions. Now, obviously, today's NFL is so different because it's all depth, right? It's under route, it's clearing areas. That's what the Vikings did really good. So against the zone, what you want to do is try to clear areas of the zone. You'll see it in college football a lot. The top teams, what they'll do is they'll do either like a deep out or a deep in, and they'll have either trips wide receiver sets, and the two outside guys will clear the corner and the safety deep, and then they'll run the deep out, or vice versa. The two inside guys will clear the backer and the safety, and they'll drag the outside wide receiver in. And that's really all Minnesota was doing, was running kind of a college-based offense, clearing out a zone, and had no eyes on Justin Jefferson. And like, I agree with you. Anybody could have ran that route, but how do you not have eyes on that guy? So you don't want to
arguably one of the top like 3 receivers in the league. You think that would be a focus, right?
100%. Yeah. And that's where you don't want to blame just one side of the ball, because man, Green Bay had a lot of mistakes, and Minnesota came in and played a hell of a game. So honestly, props to Minnesota, but you got to put a little bit of the blame on the coaching. I'm with you, man. a coach's job. You need players make plays, but coaches got to get them in the right position. And we did not adjust at halftime. He torched us early. He torched us late. He torched us the whole game. So I'm glad it was week 1. I know you talked about it last week about how we typically split with Minnesota. It's week 1. I'm okay with it. Yep. Would I prefer to win? Yes. It's never as bad as you think it is, but that was a tough game to watch as a fan. And I have another question for you on the follow-up. As we're talking Rodgers, do you think this is the start of the decline for Rodgers? And I'm not trying to say overreact after week 1, but with the lack of weapons and kind of our offensive calling being a little vanilla, do you think this is kind of the drop off in Rodgers' career here?
You could maybe say that statistically, but physically, absolutely not. I mean, that guy takes care of himself just as good as TV12, in my opinion, right? He doesn't have the weapons. He doesn't have the best or top 2, in the top 2 receiver in the league. I understand that, but he's got a lot of, he needs to develop more patience, and that's a lot easier said than done. But I don't think that his physical ability is going anywhere. I mean, he's 38 years old. Maybe was he 38, turning 39 in December, or turning 38 in December? That's for our correction segment. So somebody come on and correct me, because I don't want to be perfect every week,
I think he is 38. I think you're on the money.
I think so too, but I don't think he's going anywhere physically. He's going to have a tough year this year, and that's going to show statistically because of the young receivers that we have. But again, I think that guy's going to be able to huck the football and run around and fool people with his head and his arm and his perfect. And again, I'm not a quarterback like you are, but from what I see, is perfect footwork. Man, that guy, he can do it all. He can throw from every platform. So I don't think that he's going to be digressing in by any means. And like I said, statistically, you could look at that, but I don't think it's going to be entirely on him.
So I will say one thing I noticed about that game, and it pains me to say this as a fan, but I kind of started losing interest in the second half. But I also don't want to put the full blame on that skill set group. That offensive line looked awfully shaky the entire game. Now, Minnesota's defense is a solid defense, right? They've got some playmakers, but they're not a top 5 defense, and they made our old line look pretty rough. And if you go back and watch, Rodgers actually, they had designed plays for him to leave the pocket. I think it was to get some people moving a little bit, and also to get him out of the pocket because he didn't have a very clean pocket. But that is the last thing you want to do as an NFL quarterback. High schools do it a lot. I do it in my offense when I coached. And then in college, they do it a lot because your quarterbacks are athletic. You can get them out of the pocket, right?
Right.
In the NFL, you really don't want your quarterback rolling out of the pocket unless his name is Lamar Jackson. So that started to worry me a little bit. And I think that was I think that the offensive coordinator and LaFleur changed that up to get him out of the pocket to stop him from getting hits. But it also shortens that clock because you don't have as much time for routes to develop. So I think they almost shot themselves in the foot by trying to oversimplify the play calling. So that makes me a little bit nervous that they had to do that already. But that was just one takeaway I noticed. We've got to get that offensive line healthy. And because if we don't get an offensive line moving with this wide receiver group, man, it's going to be a long season.
Yeah, and I mean, we were missing our 2 tackles. We were missing Bakhtiari and Jenkins, and I guess Jenkins can pretty much play anywhere. And I think that boy is going to get paid a lot of money for as versatile as he is. But yeah, he does a great job. But I agree with you. I mean, it was kind of a Rodgers wasn't set up great last game, and I don't blame him entirely. I kind of if I had to push blame defensively, Joe Barry needed to make an adjustment pretty much after the first quarter, not halftime. I think he needed to make that decision after the first quarter when he saw how fast that first drive went down and they scored like immediately. And then Justin Jefferson kind of just ran over us. Even though Justin Jefferson, did he have 10 catches or 9 catches?
It was
9,
a lot.
I think
I
it was
lost
9,
count.
but he only had 3 in the second half. So you got to give him credit there, but he needed to make an adjustment earlier, whether it was first quarter or after the first drive. Offensively, I can't blame Rodgers entirely. That offensive line is shaky. They're banged up. But at the same time, you know what your pros are, man. Run the fucking football right now. Until those receivers can figure it out. Run the football.
You know what? Honestly, though, right now, I'm with you. When you get Lazard back next week, you got another big body. Bobby Tunyon looked pretty good in his return back. Our offense really wasn't moving. Bobby looked good. He's a run blocking tight end. I would almost, if I'm Green Bay, it's against my religion personally as a coach and as a player, but if I'm Green Bay, I'm going heavy. I'm with you. You get Jenkins back with a little bit more meat up front. I'm putting AJ and Aaron Jones on the field at the same time, and I'm throwing Lazard, Bobby Tunyon, and then I'm rotating Sammy Watkins and Randall Cobb right now until those wide receivers get a little bit more consistent. You're going to help Rodgers' confidence build because as a quarterback, I was really lucky. I played with the same wide receivers for like 5 or 6 years. Honestly, there was times I didn't even have to like look at them. I just knew where they were going to cut a route off. We've been playing together for so long, and that's Rodgers. Rodgers with Devontae, he'll wink at him, and Devontae knows it's one of 8 different winks, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm Green Bay, I'm going back to the veterans for right now. I do think you got to keep sprinkling Christian in there just because he does have that big play capability, and you've got to be able to stretch a defense. But I'm going heavy. I'm going Bobby with Lazard and then swapping Watkins and Cobb in and out, and I'm going 2 backs. And I'm getting the ball in Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon's hands.
Yeah, and there's no reason to say that they can't do like what your previous question for me was if I had to build a team from the ground up. When I said build heavy and then dice with the play action, I mean, is there anybody better in the league than Aaron Rodgers at play action? I don't think there is.
Lamar Jackson, maybe.
Yeah, but he doesn't fool it like he doesn't fake it. He doesn't like act it out as good as Rodgers. He can do it because that's a run heavy and maybe the only run heavy offense in the league. It's the only reason he can do it. It's not like he's like tucking the ball behind his back like Favre used to do and now Rodgers does. He's not doing any of that shit. Rodgers is, I think, the best play action could be, well, they don't utilize it enough, but he should be the best play action quarterback in the league. So, but I agree 100% with that. So I think we've had some good Packer talk. I think we need to transition into this week on games you're excited for.
Yeah.
Some locks and an upset, Dan.
I'm
really excited about this.
Before we wrap that up, though, I want to take you back to last week, and I just want to pick your brain quick.
Oh yes, we need to talk about this.
What was a game that you were like, what in the hell is going on? And what was a game where you're like, new season, same team? For me, honestly, it was the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions putting up, was it 65 points?
I think was
that
38, 35-ish, right around there. So something pretty like close. Yeah.
That was crazy. And then I try not to hate on teams. I don't want to be that fan that roots for a team to lose every week. But man, watching the Dallas Cowboys struggle was it was fun for me. And even though I'm not a Buccaneers fan, and I'm a Dak fan, I'm not happy that the guy got hurt. I don't like injuries, but seeing Dallas play like absolute dumpster fire just made me happy.
Yeah. So I think when I told Bo that the Detroit Lions were going to take a a solid step forward. I think they proved that in week one, because I also said that Philly was going to probably win that division because they were the most well-rounded team in that division. And that was a good first step for them. And that was really good to see. And again, I shouldn't be rooting for an NFC team, but it's hard to not root for the Lions. I think one that was really, really hard to watch, and Stu, if you're watching, you're welcome for that $10 for that survival league, because I pretty much, again, and I did it on air. I said how confident I was that the Broncos were going to win that game against Seattle. They were going to come in. Russ, who I don't like as a player, I thought he was going to come in with all those weapons on the outside. They still have a solid tight end. They have two good running backs. Completely shit the bed. And I don't blame Russ on this one as much as I want to. He had a solid game. He had a lot of underthrown deep balls, and they got a couple calls on defensive pass interference, but he wasn't putting the ball in great spots on those deep balls. I mean, I think you probably agree with me on that. But I think the number one guy to blame is Nathaniel Hackett. And it's unfortunate that he's coming from Green Bay. He was their OC for 3 years. But man, he managed the end of the game really, really poorly. And I think play calling wasn't awful, but the end of the game was bad. Penalties. Who do you blame for penalties? When you have 10, 12 penalties, I think it was close to 10 in the first half. I don't think there's anybody to blame when it comes to penalties besides the coach, because that's the guy that needs to force discipline, right? I mean, he's the guy. And that's really what screwed him, was penalties and those 2 turnovers at the goal line. And do fumbles happen? Absolutely, but those penalties screwed them bad. They had Seattle locked up I remember towards their own end zone a couple times, and they got out of it because they had a defensive holding or a hands to the face, whatever. So that was pretty disappointing. And again, I got to take credit for that one, that I was wrong. I was very, very wrong, but I think that was a very winnable game for Denver.
You're not alone. That probably would have been near the top of my list for lock of the week. I actually debated switching to Seattle in our pick'em league just to try to pick up an extra 10 points, because I assumed almost everybody and their mother was going to be on Denver. I kept it on Denver because I'm like, you got to pick who you think is going to cover. That was a big shocker for me. I'm with you. And how embarrassing is it for the Denver Broncos? And I'm also not a Broncos fan, for them to trade as much as they gave away to Seattle to get Russell Wilson just to lose to Seattle.
Yeah.
If you're Seattle and you're Pete Carroll and you're the GM, you've just got to be popping champagne after a week 1 victory, because wow. Yeah. And I'm with you. You talked about it at the top of the show. Man, what was up with the fumbles this week? It would, like, every time you turn the channel, somebody was turning the ball over.
Yep. Right. I know, it's crazy. But I mean, I understand that a lot of these guys say that week 1 is now the 4th preseason game, but at the same time, it fucking counts, man. Whether you like it or not, it counts. Like this, you need that. You have to prepare for that, and you need to know that. It's not like, all right, yep, it's just week 1 and whatever happens, and we'll learn and we'll grow. This matters. You need to take advantage that the other team is also going to be unprepared and go out and get that W in week 1.
And you should have plenty of time to prepare for a week 1 opponent and have a scripted game plan. I was watching the Panthers game. I know the narrative was the Baker, revenge game. I was watching because I was very involved with how Christian McCaffrey was doing. Man, these coaches, the teams that lost, their game plans were just non-existent. I
Yeah.
have no idea what Carolina was trying to do. I am not a Baker hater. I'm rooting for the guy. I was rooting for him against Cleveland in week 1. He did not look good. If you take out a bomb that he threw to Robbie Anderson, that Carolina Panthers team looked rough. So that was definitely something I noticed. But I said at the top of the show, let's not overreact. It's week 1.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you, what is your overreaction from week 1? Or who's a team that you were like, this team's not there, and now you're like, they could be a contender? Or who is a team who you were really high on and you're like, season's over?
Oh boy.
And let me preface that by saying, obviously the season's not over. We're not
Yeah.
overreacting. But
Right.
the NFL media is doing it right now. After every week, it's
Yeah.
are the Packers done? Are the Bills going to win the Super Bowl? Like, it's week 1. Let's chill.
I don't. The Packers are always going to be in it with Aaron Rodgers at under center. That's never going to be. I don't think that should be an argument. I mean, if you don't understand that, then you clearly don't understand football, in my opinion. Is he gonna have bad games? Yes, but with 12 under center, he's gonna always give you the best chance to win. An overreaction, as much as it pains for me to say, I'm gonna have to say the Texans, because everybody thought that the Colts were gonna run with that division, right? They were losing 20-3, or was it 17-3?
Yeah, something like
Into the
that.
fourth quarter, man. And I'm not knocking Matt Ryan. I think Matt Ryan's a really, really solid quarterback, but I don't think
And Jonathan Taylor was blown up.
yeah, he was. And I think that Lovie Smith did a really, really good job, but I also don't want but the Texans are not gonna go 8-9. They're not gonna be on the edge of the playoffs. I mean, I think they're doing the right things. I think they believe in the right things, but I think they're still a 4 and now we have 18 17 games. So 4-13 team, 5-12 team. Somebody that I don't that I that's an underreaction. I would have to say that the Philadelphia Eagles, even though that they beat the Detroit Lions by 3 points, that roster is stacked. It really is, and I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a really, really good year, and I think everybody believes in that city, especially in that clubhouse. Everybody believes in Jalen Hurts, so I think the Eagles are going to be a lot better than what people think, especially with Dak out. I think this is the Eagles' division to lose at this point.
In a very lackluster division, I'm with you. Yeah, going back to the Texans are kind of like the Jaguars. If you remember the Bill O'Brien era in Houston, he ran that team into the ground. I think he was either the general manager or like a coach manager, and just the decisions he made, the personnel changes, the lack of culture, the lack of discipline, that franchise needed a pick me up. So I agree with you. I'm pretty sure that's why Houston hired Lovie Smith. I don't think Lovie Smith is a long-term solution, but he's like a Doug Peterson, where he's going to bring that positive culture back to your locker room for a team that was pretty in a organization that was pretty dysfunctional. And then obviously you throw in the whole Deshaun thing. I think they're just trying to wipe their slate and start over clean. So I'm with you. I think Houston's doing it the right way, much like Jacksonville and Detroit are doing. But how about my overreaction is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. I was a Kyler Murray guy coming into the league just because of how the league is going to this, 40, 50 passes a game. But the more inside information you learn about this guy, he is not, some people are going to argue with me. I'm not saying fantasy because the guy is a fantasy gold mine. But if I'm a GM, I am not bought into Kyler Murray. I do not think he has that it factor like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. Kyler Murray, man, I'm already writing him off. I'm not saying Arizona's a bad team. I'm not saying he's a bad player. I don't think he has the focus. I don't think he has the confidence of the guys in his locker room. And if you look at the start of last season when they were absolutely blowing people out of the water, to the second half of the season when they just nosedive, and then this last week, I am overreacting on the Arizona Cardinals. I'm selling any stock I've got in that team right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've never bought into Kyler Murray. I think he's super athletic, super talented. But have you seen that? You've seen that about the whole Call of Duty thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, how ridiculous is that? Guys' fucking stats go boom down when it's double XP. Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Everyone needs that life balance, right? You got to be happy. I mean, it's 2022. Guys are going to be on social media. Guys are going to be playing games. But could you imagine Peyton Manning in the middle of the season playing Farmville? I mean, for Christ's sakes, that guy was watching film 25 hours on a 24-hour day. And
yes,
you talked about, being a general manager in real life. Would you want a quarterback that wasn't just eating, sleeping, breathing football 24/7 during the season?
No.
And that's why I'm out on Kyler Murray, and I'm out on the Cardinals. Now they've got DeAndre coming back. I've got DeAndre stashed in fantasy in a couple of my big leagues. The guy is still DeAndre Hopkins. Arizona is still going to be nasty on offense. I just don't think they're going to win enough games to be a legitimate contender at the end of the day.
No, I agree 100%. And what I was surprised is, how the Cardinals start off hot, and that's the whole. What's their coach's name? Cliff
Kingsbury, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, that would be the name drop. Basil Hayden's talking.
Hey, slow down.
But they always start hot, which I think in our pick'em league, when I picked them because they were 5.5-point dogs, and I thought, hey, they always come up with a really good game plan at the start of the year, and then team is kind of figuring them out in the end. So, but they were embarrassed this last weekend.
Now, granted, they did run into a buzzsaw that is Kansas City.
Yes.
So, again, it is week one. I'm going against, but I'm looking at the timeline. I'm looking at your quarterback's got to lead your team. He always had baseball. He always had things going on. I just don't think he's fully bought in. And I need a quarterback that's on the field and in the game film room 24 hours a day.
Right. Especially if you're paying them that much money, like you said, man, that's a lot of dough that we would all love to have. And trust me, if somebody offered me $200 million, I'd be sitting there all fucking day long.
you can give me the veterans minimum to carry Aaron's jockstrap. I'll be headset on. I'll be Aaron. Did you watch the safety? I don't need to go on the field.
Yeah.
Also, side note, I just want to throw this out there. I was not a Jordan Love fan. I know you and I talked right away on the draft. I couldn't believe it. I was as shocked as anybody else. But man, how glowingly the coaching staff talks about him and Rodgers talks about him. What just a shitty situation to get drafted and have everybody hate you. And you come in, after Rodgers and after Favre. So that was random thought in my head. I just wanted to throw it out there. I don't think the guy is the future, but man, could you be put in a tougher situation as a rookie quarterback in the NFL?
No,
I don't know.
No, and I don't think so, because it's clear that it's Aaron Rodgers' team. So, and you could maybe make that argument that, hey, Aaron Rodgers had a bad year statistically. We had a bad year. We lost against 3-13 Cardinals. Mike McCarthy lost his job. We need a fresh start. You could make that whole argument, but you can't count out a guy who is a 2-time MVP, a Super Bowl MVP. He's statistically the best quarterback of all time, right?
Not counting the rings for Brady, but yeah.
Yes, exactly. I think that was it was a reach, and I hated it at the time. I hated it, and I still do. I hate it because you know who we talked about just a little bit before, Justin Jefferson. Man, he was there, baby. He was there.
Oh,
and then
man.
we could be in a whole different situation right now.
That might be a correction, though. I think Jefferson might have went right before that.
He did, but at the same time,
we could have went and got him.
But we also traded up
to
take Jordan Love, which is crazy. He's in a shit situation. Not knocking his football ability in any ways, but let's just take it on a personal level. He's in a shit situation. I mean, even if he is a good football player and we don't know because he hasn't had enough opportunities, because he's had a quarter and a half of real NFL football, not preseason.
Right. I wanted us to trade him to Carolina before they picked up Darnold and Baker. I was like, oh my God, all these Jimmy G rumors were out there. And I'm like, get a third rounder for Love, right? Yeah. Something. Yeah. But anyway, next week, who do you got next week? Who are we talking about fantasy game wise? What are you excited to watch?
So I feel like I need a little retaliation here and on my lock because I about bet my life away on the Denver Broncos over the Seahawks. I'm going to take the Rams over the Falcons. I think that the Falcons are going to be a good and upcoming team. I think they're doing the right things with Kyle Pitts and drafting a rookie quarterback, and I think Ritter will be okay. But the Rams are too talented. They're way too talented. So I'm going to take them over the Falcons.
I actually love that pick. From my history, allegedly, I may like to dabble in the sports betting world. That is a lot of points for an NFL game.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think the Rams, kind of had a stinker of a week one. I am not a believer in Atlanta. I know they played New Orleans tough, but I'm not buying it. I think if the Rams get rolling, I think it could easily be a 34-10 game. Yep. I think if the Rams defense against Mariota, I think it's a really bad matchup for Atlanta. And it's a lot of points, but I'm with you. I think the Rams might run away with that one.
Yep. All right. Let's hear yours.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a step on your side. I'm a Bengals backer. Again, that 7.5, that damn half point really makes it tough.
Yes.
But
Cincinnati, hook, they call it a hook.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll take the hook. I think right now with Cincinnati, the way they played against Pittsburgh with the 5 turnovers, you take those turnovers away, that team was marching up and down the field on a very good defensive Steelers team.
Yep.
There's no way Burrow has 5 turnovers again. And against a Dallas team losing Dak Prescott after a week where their offense with Dak Prescott looked absolutely horrendous, I think Dallas is in a tough spot against Cincinnati. So I am hammering Cincinnati this week, even at -7.5.
All right. That's very, very fair. So why don't you give us your upset right away?
Yeah, upset. I'm not shaking the tree much this week. I really gave it a deep thought. I wanted to come in here with just a blow everybody away upset, and I just can't do it. Minnesota is a dog And, we talked about it. Philadelphia looked great. I definitely think they're going to put some points up. I just feel that Minnesota is the more complete team from top to bottom. I think they've got a better balance. I think they've got a better defense. And at the end of the day, I think they win outright, but I'm going to take Minnesota plus the 1.5. Who do you got?
Well, as everybody can see, if you're watching, as you should be, because this broadcast was phenomenal and it led by Sir Obi. But I'm going to take the Jags over the Colts. Not that I don't believe in the Colts. I think they have a lot of really, really good weapons, with Jonathan Taylor, but they struggled against a bad Texans team, and Jacksonville has an up and coming quarterback with now a number one wide receiver in Christian Kirk, and Travis Etienne is back.
Great, by the way. Christian Kirk's got some giddy.
Yes, he does. And then a couple other receivers that they brought in, and not to mention they bolstered that offensive line, so they could throw James Robinson in there to bully some people as well. But I think if I had to pick an upset, it's going to be the Jags over the Colts. And I mean, again, it's week 1, but that would be my upset. So, and as you guys can see in this upset, or the lock and upset, I'm going to take my combined records, my lock and upset versus the guest. So it's not necessarily who picked, it's going to be the guest in general. So, and maybe we can come up with a prize at the end that if the guest wins, maybe if Basil Hayden's sponsors us, then I'll throw maybe a bottle of Basil Hayden's out to everybody.
If any guest has a 2-0 week, maybe we throw them in a little, maybe a little random or something like that. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
Honestly, definitely. Though, Bo, I liked both of Bo's picks last week. Last week was tough. Week 1 is so tough because you go in, picking these games, looking at last season and thinking that every game is a lock. Yep. And then the lights turn on and you're like, oh shit. I forgot to look how many teams covered last week. I bet very heavily on the favorites last week just because the spreads were fairly low, knowing damn well that there was going to be a lot of upsets. And there was actually a lot of really intriguing games for our Pick'em League because there were so many late games back and forth. The Browns and the Panthers, the Jags and the Commanders. There was a lot of games that were like within a point going back and forth. So it was an exciting week of football last week. So what games are you most excited to see this week, Nick, both for your fantasy outlook and also for the NFL matchups?
Well, I tell you what, I mean, well, obviously I'm gonna watch my Packers for sure, but I really like the Thursday night game. That looks fantastic. I'm really excited for that. I think the Detroit and Washington game is going to be really intriguing as well. The other one other one that I'll say, and then I'll let you go, is the Steelers versus the Patriots. I understand that they're not going to have TJ Watt, but that is a really interesting game for me because the spread is pretty tight. But the Steelers defense, well, I understand they're going to be missing TJ Watt for the next month and a half, which I think that the guy should go and have his surgery, and then instead of rushing back, otherwise he's going to turn into Big Bro. But I think that's going to be a really good game. What about you?
I'm with you. That's exciting. Two teams that I normally wouldn't be all that intrigued to watch, but also Mac Jones is banged up a little bit. So, that game and Pittsburgh coming off a big win, New England, I think I predicted to take a drop this year, but they're still well coached. They still have good players. They're not going to make a lot of mistakes. Honestly, I'm not a huge Mac Jones guy. I like the guy, but I actually don't think their backup, Brian Hoyer, in that offense, I don't think they're really losing a lot. He's still a game manager, which Mac is. Now, is Brian Hoyer going to wow you with anything? No, but I don't think New England really has to change their game plan. So I'm actually leaning towards New England in that game with TJ Watt being out. If TJ Watt was in, I think it's a completely different ball game.
Oh,
Again, another one I'm with you. I think it could go either way. I just see the Patriots maybe making less mistakes and making maybe one or two more plays to sneak out a late win. Another game that I absolutely love. By the way, I love your Jacksonville over the Colts pick. That's a pretty ballsy pick, even though the spread's only 4.5.
yeah.
I like that pick. A game that I'm really excited to watch is Buffalo, Tennessee, and it's really
Yes.
just because I'm all aboard the Josh Allen train. But Tennessee is just that team that they play really well against good teams, and
Yeah.
they kind of shit the bed against bad teams. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what Tennessee Titans team shows up and if that Buffalo train keeps a chugging along. But obviously, we're all looking forward to the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. So, what are your thoughts on that game? Do you think we bounce back? And do you have maybe a score prediction?
Uh, I think that we're gonna win the game. I don't know as so we're going off of our Pick'em League spread, right? And they're
Yes.
at take a quick look. They're 9.5 point favorites.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's a really tough pick on the spread.
And
But
you took Minnesota with the points last week.
I did. Before the betting favorites went up, and actually that's one of I'm gonna let this slide out to the public. His Jonathan tells me his oh yes, I'll watch the spreads on Tuesday, and then when I look at them on Saturday compared to Vegas, I make some changes. So
Which is smart though, because the sharps know their stuff.
yeah, yes. So I think we're gonna win. It's at home, but like I brought up last week, is Aaron Rodgers needs no motivation against the Bears.
I own
Um,
you.
Yeah, I fucking own you. That was so good. I could see we're gonna be slow off on the offensive side of the football. I could see like a 24-13 victory or a 24-17 victory or even a 20. I could see us. All right, I was about to give three options there. How about 24-20?
I can dig that.
Yeah, the Bears don't have enough talent to beat us, and you could have said the same thing against the 49ers, but did you see that piss storm that they were dealing with?
Yeah.
Man, that was
Yeah.
bad.
That was actually a big surprise to me. I really thought San Francisco was going to handle Chicago, and only because I didn't think Chicago would have enough ammunition to keep up. But I'll talk about this before I kind of talk about the game. Partial fantasy strategy, and then this year is I like to go with known quantities.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce is a known quantity.
Yes.
With a healthy Saquon and a healthy CMC and Nick Chubb, those are known quantities. So that was my strategy, and that's kind of my strategy with the first couple weeks of picking the pick'ems with the spreads. I'm going with what I know. Now I know it's a new season and there's new coaches and there's new people, but it's still the same team, right? It's still the Cleveland Browns. It's still the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? We know who they are. That's what they do. And Aaron Rodgers beats the Bears, right?
Yes, he does.
That's what I know.
Yes, he does.
So I am with you. I think Green Bay wins. I might change, but as of right now, I always go in right away and just go with my gut. I will make some changes. I have Chicago right now, though, in my pick 'em at the +9.5.
I do too.
It's only because I think Justin Fields is electric enough to make a couple plays, and I don't trust Green Bay's offense right now to put up 30 points. So with that being said, I'm with you. I think that 24-20 could be a really realistic score. But I kind of went in last week not worried if we lost to Minnesota, but let me tell you, the alarm bells will be going off if we lose at home to Chicago.
I agree. 100% because I did, and I hate to admit this, but as much as I want my Packers to win every week, but if we had to lose to the Vikings, it was going to be last week, and I wasn't entirely surprised by that.
No.
Did it hurt? Yes. Yes, it did. I don't like watching those. I don't know what your experience is, but my experience is the Vikings fans, man, they are so bad compared to the Bears fans and some maybe other out of division rivals, man. It was awful, and I could see it happening, and I kind of anticipated it. I thought at the first quarter we had a legitimate shot, but then by halftime I kind of personally I accepted what was going to be happening. Yeah, it was tough. It really was. But
I think a bounce back victory is what we needed. You know,
yes,
a loss is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good
no,
little swift kick in the balls to
yep,
wake you up, right? You talked about the defensive coordinator and LaFleur's comments. Sometimes you need a little shellacking to
yep.
get a wake up. So I think this is a good opponent for us to bounce back because Chicago's still that team. There's, you know, it's a rivalry, it's division game. A win against Chicago
Sunday night.
still means a lot. Yeah. So I'm with you.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. I know we're wrapping up, and I could talk football with you all night long.
Yes.
But I'm curious, since you know you're going to have 11 other guests on the show, and I'm not going to be here getting to talk to you every week. I want to ask you about how you feel about second-year quarterbacks. We're talking about Justin Fields right now. We briefly talked about Trevor Lawrence. We briefly talked about Mac Jones. Looking back last year, you had that second-year jump with Herbert and Burrow and Jalen Hurts and Tua. Now this year you've got this crop. Who are you a believer in the long term, and who are you kind of selling on those second-year quarterbacks?
Okay. First off, I'll tell you which one I don't believe in. From a very statistical standpoint, okay, I think that Justin Fields is the most talented quarterback that the Chicago Bears have ever had, and I will never deny that. But would you like to know that what the most successful quarterback from Ohio State ever did in the NFL? Dan,
Nothing.
say why. Ask. What? Tell me. It's just ask, please.
What is the best Ohio State quarterback done in the NFL, Nick?
It wasn't at the quarterback position. They transitioned him to a punter, to a fucking punter. So until an Ohio State quarterback proves me wrong, I will not believe in it. All right. I think he's talented, but he's in a shit situation. He's in a shit city because of the weather. And I know that there may or may not be a new stadium in Arlington Heights and all that, but I just don't see it. He's going to be gone after 4 or 5 years, and they're going to move on to the next project. Second-year quarterbacks, you know, somebody, and this might be a dark horse. It might be a serious dark horse, but I could see Davis Mills being a really, really solid quarterback in the NFL. And I know but he's also in a shit situation, but
He's shown glimpses though.
Yes, he has.
With a really poor team. So I feel you on that.
Yes. I think that it's a slow process, but I think that he could be a real legitimate starter, maybe not top 10, but I think he could be a legitimate starter, where I think the Justin Fields experiment is going to be a fast and done, you know, pretty quick here. Nice. What about you?
Well, that's always the discussion, is that second year you want to see that jump, right? I'm still fully fully bought into Trevor Lawrence. I loved it. I love the Doug Peterson hire. I'm actually a little bit against you though. I think Fields has the talent, and I think the new coaching staff wants to surround him with the right play callers and the right players. I think it's going to be another year or two, but I think with his speed and his maneuverability, he could. But I'm still going Trevor Lawrence. I think Mac Jones has the lowest ceiling, for long term. I think he's going to be a solid starter. He's going to win games. I just don't see him moving the needle as that guy that has that it factor that I think Lawrence has. I still think Lawrence could end up being out of the year in 4 leagues, obviously, if he doesn't put together a year this year. But if I had to bet on one of them, because really right now they're all pretty unknown, right? Last year, you knew who Burrow was. He was blowing it up before he got hurt. Herbert was killing it. Tua's got potential. I was always a firm believer in Jalen Hurts. I was actually a bigger Hurts guy than I was Tua at Bama. This year you've got more unknowns. Trey Lance is a hot talk with the 49ers.
Yep.
I'm rooting for the guy, even though I don't like the Niners, but I'm not bought into the hype yet until I see it. So I'm actually, and I honestly, coming out of the draft, I did think Zach Wilson was the number 2 pick. I don't think he's the real deal either. So if I had to rule somebody out, I would say I would rule Zach Wilson out first. I would say Mac Jones has the lowest ceiling, but probably the highest floor. And I think Lawrence and Fields are those 2 guys that I don't think either one of them are going to be, a Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, but they could be top 5 guys.
So I really do believe in Trevor Lawrence. And like you said, you brought up before that a lot of guys believe in Trevor. I do. And when you ask amazing questions like this, and I really appreciate that, because it's driving conversation. But I try to talk about guys a little out of the obvious, but I agree 100% on Trevor Lawrence. I think he's the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning, and that's pretty effing good, right? So I think he's going to be really good. Zach Wilson, I love the memes on him, by the way. I don't know if you've seen that shit, but I eat that right up. I think that's hilarious. I think he's going to be solid, but he's also necessary to my first overall pick in our rookie draft in Garrett Wilson. I need Zach Wilson. I want that Wilson to Wilson connection. I want that bad, but it's definitely up in the air. And I know that a rookie seasons are tough for quarterbacks, but for example, look at Peyton Manning. You can't argue with that, man. He had a rookie record for interceptions in a year, and look where he ended up. He did pretty damn good. So, not saying that Zach Wilson's going to be Peyton Manning by any means, but I don't. I think I'd rather. I would give up on Fields before Wilson. But hey, what do we know? If we knew what they knew, we'd be a GM of an NFL team instead of sitting here in central Wisconsin having a podcast on a Wednesday night.
I'll take it. I'd rather be on a podcast with you than other places. All right.
Yeah.
We're looking to wrap it up. I got one more question for you. I just want real quick, top of your head. We didn't talk about this before the podcast because I wanted to surprise you.
All right.
One totally off your rocker bold prediction for the season, fantasy or regular. One bold prediction.
Ooh, that's a really good one.
I'll throw mine out while you think about it.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Not 1, not 2, but 3 quarterbacks are going to throw for 50 or more touchdowns this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And who are those 3 quarterbacks?
Patrick Mahomes will be one of them.
Yep. Do you have an idea on the other 2?
That's bold enough to throw 3 people out there. Patrick Mahomes will be one of the 3.
Oh fuck, that's a tough question. I really appreciate these questions, by the way.
I wanted to put you on the spot for you viewers. I gave Nick a couple of these questions ahead of time so we could have dialogue, but I also wanted some true on the spot digging. And for something like this, it's fun.
Yeah, so I I don't know how bold this is, but out of the AFC West, I think between fourth place and first place in that division will be separated 2 or 3 games. And I think there's going to be 3 teams coming out of the AFC West going to be in the playoffs. Again, maybe that's not that bold.
That's
It's not
pretty
that
bold.
crazy, but man, they maybe besides the Chiefs, but those other 3 teams have 2 legitimate edge rushers. Obviously they're built to beat the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs don't really have edge rushers, but they have a very good team overall. But I think the Broncos are going to figure it out after an embarrassing Week 1 loss against the Seahawks. Chargers and Raiders. I mean, I think that's just going to be a normal thing in this division. It's just going to be beating up on each other, and none of the there's going to be no 6-0 team in that division against divisional teams. It's going to be
And there's no
it's gonna be a
division you could
slugfest.
stack up right now. There's no division you could say could play that division week in and week out and get a winning record.
No, I don't think so. I guess that's a really good question, a really tough question, but I guess if I had to go with it, I would say three playoff appearances by the AFC West. But I don't think that it's going to be separated by a whole lot, and I don't think that the number 1 team in that division is going to have more than 11, definitely not more than 12 wins in that division. Because how can you if you're just beating the shit out of each other every week, right?
Yeah.
So, well, Dan, I want to give a huge thanks to you for setting up this media. And I was going to bring this up, and after, if you didn't, and I know that you brought up that you created all this media, and I'm so thankful and grateful that you did that. And I'm really looking forward to you continuing doing this, because this is so much fun. Like, golf ended a couple weeks ago, and I was just telling Monica tonight, and like, my hobby was golf, and now all of a sudden my hobby is fantasy football, and doing this podcast is so awesome. And I really want to thank you for doing everything that you've done. And I want to name you the if I was going to do this anyways, but the executive media producer of this franchise. So thank you so much. And I can't thank you enough.
If there's a graphic artist out there, or anybody knows a graphic artist, trust me, I'm doing this in PowerPoint. It's just I'm trying to add a little flair. So if anybody knows a professional that wants to volunteer for this, because we are not paid programming yet,
No.
please let us know, and we would love to accept your offers.
Yes. So that's another good point. I have to remind everybody that we are not betting experts. Do not take our bets. We just like to have fun and talk football. Do not take our bets. If you have some extra spending money, do that on your own time. If you want to take our opinions,
please
fine.
Do deep treats. Send me trade offers. I'm looking for draft capital. And I'm looking for an upgrade at wide receiver. I know I said Saquon and CMC are off limits, but I'll listen to offers. It's going to take a big offer, but I love Stu, his energy and his trades. I think he might have 4 people left from his original roster, but
yeah,
it's a lot of fun. It's a good group of guys. Thanks for inviting me into the league. Really looking forward to it, and I know we're all having a lot of fun. So this is going to be a big piece of making this engaging moving forward.
Yeah, I think we've gotten some really positive feedback from week 1 of the EHTC, and I think that we'll have as equal positive income from this one, if not better. I mean, I feel like I'm more comfortable doing this now after going into week 2, so we're definitely going to continue this, and I'm super excited. And again, thank you for all the visuals that you put together, and I appreciate it so much, and I'm looking forward to see how far that this can go.
And
So
to us getting our first victory this week in week 2. Sorry, John. I'm going to need that W this week.
yes. So, all right, Dan. Well, love you, pal. We'll talk to you soon. And this was an absolute blast.
Give Obi a treat for me. We'll see you next week.
All right. Take care.
Bye.